Now, I don't know about you people, but I hate the dark. I find it creepy, unnerving. I think it's mostly the unknown factor of it. Like anything can be hiding in it. Just could come out of nowhere and stab you repeatedly in the face. Which is why it's so weird that I like the subject of this video, which is two games, both in a series called The Darkness, based on a comic by I want to say Image Comics. Can't really remember. And I mainly would recommend the first game, The Darkness, because to me it's more stronger story wise. It was developed by Starbreeze Studios, published by 2K Games, produced by Lars Johansson, designed by Jens Anderson, programmed by Magus Hagdahi. The artist on was Jens Matthews, written by Paul Jenkins and Mikkel Saker, composed by Gustav Grefberg, and it's part of the Darkness series. And it was actually adapted from a comic called The Darkness, and a character who was in another comic series before that called Witchblade. And you basically play as a guy named Jackie Estacado, and I think the game is an improvement on over the comic. It's like it's superior to it story-wise. Then again, I've only read bits and pieces of the comic online, and I have no idea if I'm seeing the whole thing online. But you play as Jackie Estacado, a hitman for the Franchetti crime family, on the night of his 21st, and it starts on the day of his 21st birthday. Here's the thing. He gets ambushed on his way to do a hit because they lost some money, so they thought they could make up for it by whacking a foreman at a construction site for Polly. But they get ambushed. Jackie is the only survivor. His other two friends die in the process. He finds the foreman. There's a bomb waiting for him in the same room as the foreman's dead body. And that same night, he gets his hands on a power called the Darkness, which enables him to create demons or anything he can think of. But in the game, it's like it has two tentacle things come out from both sides of his head, or his shoulders, with demon heads on them. And he can also summon littler demons to either help him in battle or to help him get something done that he needs done. Combine that with gunplay, it's pretty fun. But here's where I think it's also superior. He dies twice in the game. And I don't mean like in the gameplay was. I mean in the story he actually has to die twice. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but after he dies the first time, he gets sent to a place that's reminiscent of the trenches in World War I, which I loved as a kid when I played that part. I mean, it used to confuse me till I figured out how to get through it. But looking back, it was an awesome level, and he goes to that place twice. And it's like a nightmarish place that I would not mind seeing them do into a game one day. Like, just take that as a setting and roll with it. But yeah, it's fun. If I had to give it a rating, it'd probably be a 4 out of 5. It's depressing, I'll give you that. But there's a highlight at the end where you get to take on Uncle Polly and put him in the ground. But that's as far as spoilers as I'm going to give. And the main thing for me that I think is a positive is the gameplay is fun to play, but it's hard and it's easy to die sometimes depending on the difficulty. So make those shots count if you get it. You can find this came out in 2007, so you can find it for Xbox One on Xbox Live or whatever the Xbox store is called. And it's a fun game. I'm pretty sure I've already said that. But it's kind of like, it's very heavy metal in my opinion. And I'm not a heavy metal fan. I'm more of just a metal fan or a punk rock fan or a bunch of different stuff, but I'm not a heavy metal fan. This game feels heavy metal, and I loved every second of it. Mostly because of the shooting. I love shooting games, but actually, to bring it back to the opening, the reason why it's kind of weird that I like this game is because I'm afraid of the dark, and your powers are best when you are in the dark. So if there are lights, you have to shoot them out. And so you can regain some of your power back. It's like, I don't think you ever see a gauge in the game, or a bar, or like a health bar for your stamina or whatever. but there's kind of a refill, and at some point you do get the ability to use two guns that are connected to the darkness, so you have to stay in the dark constantly to keep them reloading. And some other stuff is you go against the NYPD, you go against the mob. Depending on who you are as a person, you may be thrilled by going against either of those. It has some, well, not interesting characters, but characters I can tolerate. So, like, they're likable. Well, some of them are. I think Jimmy the Grape is probably the one I like the most. No, actually, no, Butcher Joyce. Butcher Joyce is a pretty cool guy. And that's all I can really say is just, like, it's a very metalish game. It's got guns, violence, no titties, no sex, which is kind of a downer, but this is back in the early 2000s. Not all of them had that, although, looking back, I think I prefer games from back then to the ones now, because at least they weren't trying to be schlock. And not the good kind of schlock, like Wolfenstein, The New Colossus. That game was good schlock to some extent. Games now are kind of bad schlock. The Darkness is also kind of schlocky, but it's good schlock that I find immense pleasure in. For me, one of the fun things was collecting the collectibles and collecting the hearts. And I'm not joking about that. Every time you kill someone who's evil, you have the option to devour their heart and raise your darkness level. You don't eat them, though. One of the tentacle heads that you use to attack people, they eat the hearts. Not Jackie doesn't. And that's all I can really say about the game without spoiling it too much. Just, if any of this sounds appealing to you, I would recommend trying it. And that's all I can really say about it. I'm not that very good at doing in-depth stuff. So all I can really say, yeah, it's good, it's fun. The second one was also fun, but not as interesting story-wise. And the ending, that was like a kick to the nads. Like, the ending to Darkness 1 was kind of a downer and depressing, but the end to Darkness 2 kind of pissed me off because it left you on a cliffhanger, and I hate cliffhangers, especially if the sequel's not a guarantee. But if you can handle that, then yeah, go for it. Both games end on a low note, but the games are respectively a high note. The second one, like, it takes place a couple years later, or maybe a year later after the first one. Can't remember the dates, but you still play as Jack Yestico in the second one, but he's now the Don of the Franchetti crime family. So, spoilers alert if you read between the lines on that. And he gets attacked by a group called the Brotherhood, who they once had ownership of they had contained it. And then, like, this is something I learned in the lore, because there were these collectibles in it that had lore attached to them. And they once had ownership, they had contained it in a box of some kind, or some kind of object. Then it drove them crazy. And that's all I can really say about the second one, is that's what you're fighting. And that's all I want to say on it. I just thought I would do a video on this one because a couple months back I had played it, and I wanted to do a video on it. And yeah, I've said all I want to say. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, oh well, it's not for you, I guess. It's just not your cup of tea. I would recommend looking at videos of it up on YouTube before you get in it, just to see the gameplay. And then you'll see what I'm getting at. And yeah, have a nice day. Remember, the game was rigged from the start. And I don't mean the actual video games.